Welcome back to another episode of the Young Guides Podcast. I'm Keaton, and this is...
I'm Kyle.
But first, a word from our partners.
First up, we want to talk about Heather's Choice. If you go to the Heather's Choice website and use our code TheYoungGuides15 at checkout, you can get yourself 15% off site-wide. So go check them out. We got packaroons for snacks. We got dinners. We got breakfasts. We got a bunch of new recipes coming out to you guys. So head on over to heatherschoice.com at checkout. Use our code TheYoungGuides15 and get you guys something for your next outdoor adventure.
Awesome. For our next partner, we have Lucky Bug Lures, home of the Bingo Bug, Zombie Max, Fusion Extreme, Lucky Plug, F-Bomb, and Pike Bomb. They take conventional lures and change them up a little bit, and it helps your fishing and your luck on the water. Go check them out. www.luckybuglures.com. Go get yours today.
All right. Up next, we have Northern Knits. Emily up here in Anchorage knits wool hats and distributes them through her social media platforms. You can find her on Facebook or on Instagram. Her Instagram account is northern._.knits. And you can see some of the hats that she has in stock and order from there, or you can kind of get an idea of what you want, message her, and you can set something up to have a specific pattern or color scheme that you want in your hat. Keaton and I both have one. Well, I actually have several. Keep you very warm. They're very fashionable. They look great. They feel great. You'll look awesome if you wear one. So check her out, Northern Knits.
Next up, we have a friend, Matt, at Alaska Rod Co. He just released a new lineup of rods for the 2022 season. They have a lineup of 8 freshwater spinning rods with actions and power for anglers chasing big, aggressive fish. With lengths ranging from 6 foot to 9 foot, there are plenty of options for various applications and style. In a world full of mass-produced rods, Alaska Rod Co. makes sure that rods and services provide what other brands cannot. Rods built and tested in Alaska.
Matt also is coming out with a new line of fly rods. Alaska Rod Co. fly rods are built for harsh environments while maintaining the utmost level of craftsmanship. Right now, Alaska Rod Co. is 9-foot fly rods ranging from 5 weights to 8 weights. 10-foot single-hand rods, switch, and spare rods will be available late winter or spring. There's enough rod companies out there trying to build the next lightest and flashy rod. Alaska Rod Co. is here to build you a rod you can pass down generations. Fishing means many things to many different people. Alaska Rod Co. is honored to build you the ultimate tool that connects you to that meaning.
If you want to learn a little bit more about Alaska Rod Company, go back and check our previous podcast. We asked him several questions about his rods, his warranties. He does a great job at explaining everything and covering everything about his company. Also, if you have questions, you can always DM him or DM us and we can get you going in the right direction. So, Alaska Rod Co.
Finally, we want to say thank you for listening to another episode of the Young Guides podcast. If you can, head on over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and a rating. It helps us know that we're doing this for the right reasons, and you guys are giving us some great feedback already. You can also head over to Spotify. They now have a rating feature on the podcast there. So if you could let us know how we're doing, that would be great. It also helps helps us spread the word through you. But makes us pop up on the feeds wherever you listen to podcasts a lot more if you give us a great rating and a great review. You can also head to our website and contact us through that form if there's anything that you think we should know about, if you want to be on our show, or if there's something that we need to work on. You can also find us on Instagram, and same thing, give us some feedback, drop us a message, and we will get back to you.
With Instagram, make sure to also check our story. We before we do our podcast on Thursdays, we always have an option for you guys to ask questions to the people coming on our podcast. And we post a lot of stuff that we like to get viewers and people following us involved. So if you want to head on over, give us a follow and start asking questions and join in on the fun on our Instagram page.
Without further ado, here's the episode.
Welcome back to another episode of the Young Guides Podcast. I'm Keaton, and this is...
I am Kyle.
And today we're just going to hop on and kind of give a little update, kind of things that are happening. We had some technical difficulties last week, and we just wanted to hop on, chat a little bit, talk about some upcoming things, talk about what's going on with our partners, maybe some upcoming events that are happening, anything else, Kyle?
Yeah, to kind of give you guys an update. We haven't sat down and really talked, just the two of us. So kind of giving a little update on where the podcast is right now. Talk about some of our partners, some events coming up, and just kind of a little life update from Keaton and I. So
absolutely.
You want to just run down? I'm going to run down this list here, Keaton.
Yeah, let's just get after it.
So first thing we wanted to cover today was the new Heather's Choice adventure menu. For those of you that don't know, I work at Heather's Choice. I work in production. I'm a lead in the kitchen. I've been there since October, and we recently rebranded Heather's Choice. We added some new meals, and then we just kind of revamped some old recipes and just rebranded Heather's Choice in general. So we got a new logo, new look, new everything. So we've got 3 new dinners, 3 new breakfasts, and a new flavor of packaroon. We got rid of some older flavors of those. Again, we revamped old recipes. But today I just kind of wanted to talk about some of those new meals that you guys can check out. When it comes to breakfasts, and again, I was kind of part of this research and development process since I've been there. I can't say I was directly in touch with like creating the recipes, but I definitely gave a lot of feedback, like tasting different recipes and sizing up and sizing down and swapping things out. So I was very involved in the process. I guess you could say by tasting it and giving feedback. And 3 new breakfasts that we added were the Morning Glory oatmeal, the Swiss muesli with milk, and the Summer Harvest oatmeal. Out of those 3, I really like, they're all really good. I haven't had enough Summer Harvest, honestly, to rate it where I have like 1 through 3. But if I'm going to have a meal, like if I had to choose one of the 3 for breakfast, I would choose the Morning Glory oatmeal. We got rid of a couple of our other flavors. We kept the apple pie buckwheat breakfast, the banana nutmeg buckwheat breakfast, and the blueberry cinnamon buckwheat breakfast. All those super good. I know buckwheat is kind of an acquired taste, and it's got a different kind of texture. It takes a little bit of a while getting used to, but good. It's a good breakfast. Keaton's had some other buckwheat breakfast, right, Keaton?
Yeah, I tried it had like the oatmeal with the buckwheat. It was really good. At first, I was like, I almost want to put it like into a category of like a thinner radish, like kind of texture, right? Like it's not a bad texture. Like the first couple bites, I was like, I thought I like left the packet in, but once I figured out that it's buckwheat, it was really good. And like, this sounds crazy, but I felt pretty good that day. I felt pretty energized after eating it, and it was just all good stuff. And it's easy to make if you're making it at home. Cup in the microwave of hot water, put it in there, shake it up, close it, leave it for like 10 minutes, come back and enjoy it, and it's at like perfect temperature. So they're super easy if you're going out on like Kyle was saying, he's going camping with them, or backpacking, or you're going on a fishing trip for the day. Bring a jet boil, warm up some water. You can fill up a couple of them for you and some buddies, and it's a nice warm meal when you're out. Springtime, winter, fall. We live in cold areas. We only have like 3 or 4 months of decent weather. So, but great options out there, and I'm excited to try some of the new stuff as well.
Yeah, for sure. And like Keaton said, it's not only for if you are backpacking or hunting or you're out there. Like I eat this stuff quite often for breakfast if I'm in a hurry, or sometimes I'm just like, hey, I'm going to have a Heather's Choice breakfast, I think, with my eggs or whatever in the morning. I'll just make that because it's It's easy. It's just like making any other kind of oatmeal. It's really good for you. Good way to jumpstart your day. Um, yeah, super good stuff. And then when it comes to our meals, like I said, we revamped some of our old recipes, got all new packaging. We did add the shepherd's pie, the chicken rice, the spinach curry with chicken and rice. That is my favorite. And then the vegetable lentil soup. Um, those are all great choices. I don't think Keaton's tried any of those. Keaton has tried the new recipe of the grass-fed bison chili.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, good stuff. And it's got a lot of protein. It's all good stuff for you again. But go ahead.
Some of those new packaroons, I really like. You'll catch me at like midnight snack, like stuffing one in my mouth. They're super good. So try some of those.
Yep. Packaroons are
The snickerdoodles, right? You release those?
Yep. The newest packaroon flavor is the snickerdoodle.
Sweet.
Yeah, they're super good. All new packaging for those.
It tastes like a snickerdoodles cookie. Like, get after it. Go try some. They're really good.
For sure. And if you don't know what a packaroon is, they are a coconut cookie for your backpack. It's like a macaroon, coconut dehydrated cookie. Come in a little package, and they are great to throw in your pack. So that was just kind of a quick rundown of our meals. We got 3 new breakfasts, 3 new dinners, and a new packaroon flavor. My favorite meal by far is that spinach curry with chicken and rice. I love that. I eat that all the time, at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. And if I'm going to go on a hike, backpack, fishing trip, hunting, whatever, I am 100% packing spinach curry with chicken and rice. If I had to, I would eat that every day because it is so freaking good. It's got a little bit of kick. It's got a good balance with the rice. It's got a little bit of that spinach, a little bit of chicken with that protein. The way we cook it now, super, super good. So check them out online. You can go to theheatherschoice.com. When you check out, use the code the Young Guides 15 to get yourself 15% off. Get that shipped to you. If you're in Anchorage or you're in the Valley, or if you're in Alaska and you want to swing by, you can put an order in and pick it up there at the store, or excuse me, not at the store, but at our warehouse. And now we don't have to pay for shipping. If you're in the area, swing by, pick it up. You can also find a Sportsman's Warehouse, REI. We're in a bunch of REI locations, and in Alaska, where we're in several Alaskan stores. Like Hoarding Marmot here in Anchorage, Barney Sports Chalet, a lot of those mountaineering kind of backpacking sort of stores. So one final thing on that, like Keaton and I were already talking about, those new breakfasts are a good thing to make at home. You don't just have to have those when you're in the backcountry. Same thing goes for lunch. One of my favorite things to do, and what I usually end up doing if I'm going to the kitchen to work and I have my lunch break in the middle of the day, since these meals do have a bit of a wait time to rehydrate, right? You boil water, you put water in the food, and it takes 15, 20 minutes to rehydrate. One thing I will do is, let's say I'm going to make a batch of chicken salad, I'll put it in a container, and I will cold soak it. So I will put it in a container, I will add cold water to it, and then I will close the container and I put that in the fridge when I get to work. And when I'm cold soaking it, normally what would take 15 to 20 minutes to rehydrate with boiling water, doing the cold soak takes a lot longer. But as long as it's kept at a good temperature, it'll just slowly rehydrate your food. And then if it's not fully rehydrated, and just to warm it up, I'm going to throw it in the microwave for a couple of minutes. And that's going to help that rehydration process. And it's going to warm my food back up. So it's kind of a cool little hack if you want to plan ahead. Maybe you want to have Heather's Choice for dinner at home, or you want to have a lunch. Start cold soaking it in the fridge. It'll help that process a little bit faster. Then just throw it in the microwave, warm it up. Same thing. You can just put cold water in it, in a bowl, in the microwave, warm it up, and it's good to go. So that way you kind of skip that rehydration process a little bit. So that was kind of, go ahead.
I want to add on before we get rolling, just kind of some technical stuff now with it. What do you do when you're going, like, say you're going, let's say we're going on a backpacking, 2-3 days. How much food do you usually try to pack for? And what do you usually like to pack your food into? I know you have like a backpack, but do you like to keep it like stored? I know like Heather's Choice is all stored up. Is it easy to roll up? Do you try to roll up and keep it on one side of your backpack? How do you kind of contain that?
So usually in the past, especially if I'm backpacking where I know there's bears and stuff, I have a separate food bag, like a Sea to Summit, some kind of like little dry bag. And I will put the food in there, roll it up tight, and that way I can hang it from a tree.
Okay.
Probably going to be doing the same thing up here like that. Previously, I was dehydrating my own food at home, and I was putting those in a freezer Ziploc. Because when you have a freezer Ziploc, you can pour boiling water straight into the freezer Ziploc, and you can use that as your bowl. It doesn't melt. But with these Heather's Choice packages, one thing that sets us apart is we have a lot smaller package. So let's say I'm going to go for, I've got a bear hunt coming up in May, right? It's going to be multi-day. It'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm probably going to pack uh, for sure lunch and a dinner, Heather's Choice for each one of those days. And I'll probably do at least one of our breakfasts. And then I personally like what's called what we would call a savory breakfast. I like to have a little bit of spice and meat. I like meat in my breakfasts. I have to have protein in my breakfast, and we do not offer that currently at Heather's Choice. And I dehydrate my own breakfast skillet at home, and I will be adding that to a freezer bag and taking a couple of those. So I'm going to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner dehydrated food, and I'm probably going to have another breakfast, lunch, and dinner that I'm going to throw in that bag just as backup in case something happens. I have another day's worth of food. But again, the thing about Heather's Choice food and even the way I cook at home when I make my own breakfast skillet, I'm using organic food, I'm using whole foods. I'm cooking the exact same thing I am at home. I'm just putting it into a dehydrated form so I can take it with me. That way, my gut doesn't have to relearn all these new foods, and my stomach's having to relearn what it's eating and making myself sick. I have good whole foods. I feel good. I can perform well. And again, I'm just going to put those all in a smaller dry bag so that if I am backpacking, whatever I need to do, I can seal it up so it's watertight and then hang it in a tree and it's separate. I'm doing the same thing. I might throw my snack foods in there, my granola bars, my packaroons, of course, your gorp. I personally have to have something salty. So I'm going to pack like some kind of I like straight tortilla chips. I don't care anything else. Tortilla chips, any kind of salted crackers, pretzels, just something salty. And that's gonna go in there. Maybe like I will pack a couple Swiss mueslis with the milk because that's a freaking good dessert. So I'm gonna throw that in there. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm gonna pack. I'm gonna pack my snacks, packaroons, granola bars, gorp, something salty like chips. I'm going to do a breakfast, lunch, and dinner for every day, plus an extra breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Cool.
And then I'm sure I'll find some random stuff. I will throw my supplements, my Mountain Ops Ignite, my BCAs, stuff like that, so I can keep energized and recovering every day.
Cool. Yeah. One more thing, and then I think we're going to move on because this is like the longest Heather's Choice ad ever. No, I'm just kidding. But I want to say that like I at first I was kind of like nervous to try the dehydrated food because I was like, oh man, this is gonna be like bland and like no flavor, but it's actually really good. And rehydrating it's surprising how like small it goes, and then it like just like your bowl, just it's like a half a bowl of chili, and next thing you know, you add water and it's like a full bowl of chili. So get out there, try it. You can save a little bit. Use the Young Guides 15 in the checkout and get after it. Try it. Even if you're a day, you're just doing a day hike or you're just doing, you're going out to hang out and you just want lunch on the beach, like Kyle said, or even just at home. It's right there. It's convenient. All you do is add water and you got a delicious meal in front of you.
Absolutely.
All right, Kyle, I'm going to roll on to this next one, kind of get talking about these two events coming up. The Young Guys podcast is partnering with NWTF Washington for a Jake's event. A Jake's event is a youth event open from ages 6 to 15, accompanied by a parent. It's going to be on June 11th at the Tacoma Sportsman Club. Registration is going to be from 8:30 and it will go till 3, but you're going to want to get there in the morning so you can get the full course of all the events going on. Some of the events are going to have conservation exploitation. They're going to have some BB guns. I'm going to be there with the Young Guides podcast. We're going to be doing fly casting and much more. When you come to this event, you're gonna get a lunch. You're gonna get a Jake's membership with the NWTF. You're gonna get Jake's magazine, and then we're gonna have some giveaway items there. So the cost is only going to be $25. You can pre-register now. You can visit the NWTF Washington's Facebook page, and they have the sheet on there, what to fill out and where to send it. Make sure to hop on there, come out to the event. I think it's going to be awesome. They've had it in years past, but with kind of COVID slowing down and stuff, we're excited to meeting people and being in person. So, and now that we're kind of on this event train coming up, I also wanted to come out and talk about the Cedar River cleanup. I put it on every year with the TU chapter nearby, Three Rivers Trout Unlimited. And it's going to be on August 6th. I haven't got all the details nailed down yet. It's a little ways out, but you can follow us on the Young Guys podcast, or if you follow our chapter page, Three River TU, you'll be able to see what's happening, what events. We're going to be doing a market this year with the cleanup, so I'm really stoked about that. If you're a club, or if you're someone that listens to our podcast and you have a business and you're interested in being part of our market, you can message me at Big Hoss Outdoors, or you can message me through the Young Guides podcast Instagram, and we can talk about further details. But a lot building up. I've done this for the past 3 years, and it's going to be our 4th year doing it. It's a great event. It shows a little bit about our urban conservation. I think a lot of people, they want to go out and do all this conservation work on all these rivers far away from the city, but we also got to take care of the ones that we got going through the heart of the city. So come out, check it out. I'll be doing a Facebook event here, in the next month or so. So give us a follow. Let me know if you're going to make it. I'm so excited to do it. I'm so excited to see some people. And if you volunteer with doing the cleanup, there's going to be a lot of giveaway stuff, from like guide trips. There might be some rods. Who knows? I'm still reaching out to people. So in order to find out, you're going to have to be there. So looking forward to seeing you.
For sure. And Keaton's done a hell of a job the last several years putting this thing together. I was there for at least one of them.
I think you were the first one.
I think, yeah. Is it that long ago?
It's been 4. This will be my 4th year doing it. It's crazy.
That is true. But yeah, Keaton does a hell of a job. We have a good turnout. It's a good way to give back, especially if you're in Seattle, if you're in Renton and you're fishing any of those urban rivers. This is your time to give back. This is the time to go out with support from other anglers and other like-minded people to go out, clean up your resource, and just give back. Keaton, I know we talked about it on the podcast, but Keaton is a huge into conservation. And I think that's super important for everybody to just get more involved. If you're going, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're hunting, if you're hiking, if you're skiing, whatever you're doing, recreating outside, you need to give back. You need to find ways to help promote your resource so that we don't lose it in the future.
Yeah.
Going to a cleanup like Keaton's, I think that's one of the best ways you can do it and get your hands real dirty.
And Kyle, we're not saying that you have to end up like me and be nose deep in conservation every week, but just getting out and giving back to the community, especially, I just talked to a fellow angler about this yesterday, and we just were chatting, like, you got to have some in the things that are happening around our fisheries and around everything. You just have to be there to show some level of support in whatever way you believe, right? We want to make sure that you're out there. If you can, try to get out to a cleanup. If you're out there and you see even if you're seeing like bills come up about, conservation or fishing in a certain area or something, extending the season, or just, looking at it and being part of that and trying to like push our fisheries in a positive way. So just being more involved in, like I said, trying to get it going and getting it into a positive direction. And, it's got to start in the urban areas and work its way out. And just, we got to work hard on keeping our fish alive. So, like I said, make sure to come out and then also, since we're kind of on the Cedar River topic, check out for, my TU chapter and me. We worked hard at putting up we're going to be having some signs. You should see them up here in the next few weeks. Just talking about being, conscientious. Can you say conscientious of your actions? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Conscientious of your actions when you're going to fish these places, knowing when to fish, when to give the fish a break. And that's conservation in itself right there, making sure that you're not fishing these these smaller or bigger fish at certain times to just help keep a population alive. So I could go down a winding road for hours on this, but I think to save you guys and us, I'm not. So on to the next one, Kyle.
Kind of next up on our list of things was talking about where we're both at in terms of our guide seasons. Today, driving back from Heather's Choice, I noticed that Campbell Creek in Anchorage is the first day I've seen it flowing all winter.
Crazy.
It's the ice is finally starting to break up. Shane, my outfitter up in Willow, who lives literally a stone's throw from Willow Creek, posted a photo in front of his place. The Willow is open in spots. I'm not going to say the whole creek is open, but what I'm saying is that it's open in front of his house, which is awesome. It's barely wide enough to get a raft down, so I'm not holding my breath. I'm guessing it won't be fishable for another month. At least floatable, but I'm thinking that those trout are going to start stacking up at the mouth of the Willow and all those Parks Highway streams as things start to break up, and we should be able to start fishing on the parks here pretty soon. I put my ice fishing gear up for the year because I know that it's starting to thin out. I'm not going to go out on the ice. Last time I was on the ice, it was cracking under my feet, so we still had like 18 inches of ice, but since then, I know we've got to have a lot less than that. But yeah, I'm hoping to start guiding sometime mid-May. But I'm definitely going to be making my way north to fish on some of those Parks Highway streams, I'm guessing within the next month. So I'm super stoked.
Cool. On my end, I'm a little bit out of commission right now with my boat. I had a little fiberglass repair that I have to do, so I've been working on that. But we've been having we're starting to hit the spring where we're getting some sun for a couple hours, and it rains on me. So when I get it, I can get out there and do it for like an hour or two, and then it starts pouring on me. So I'll be back in it here pretty quick. But Ellensburg Anglers over there fishing right now. We just talked to Todd today. He said the squallow fishing's pretty good. March Browns are about to pop off here pretty soon. Should be happening in the next few weeks. But there is some high flows happening on the Yakima River right now. Just checking it on USGS, and it's flowing about 3,500 at Umptanum. And for this time of year, it's kind of a little bit early to be bumped up this high. So it's just keep an eye on that before you make your trip over. You can always call Ellensburg Angler and ask kind of how the river conditions are looking, or if you can't get a hold of us, give Evening Hatch a call, and he'll be able to kind of give you an update. And the Evening Hatch is really good at giving like a weekly update on their Instagram. So make sure to go check them out, and you'll be able to see, how it's all going. But I just like this time of year, I'd hate to make a trip over. You plan to make a trip over from like the west side to go fish the yak, and it's just not in the condition you want it to be. So just check it out. This next week, I'm going to go hit the beaches for some sea run cutthroats. Kind of been seeing that there's been a little bit of chum fry happening, and going to be throwing some clousers or something, or some chum fry, or I don't know. I'm kind of novice at that, but I'm ready to just get out and take the dust off the fly rod. So
Heck yeah. So let's I think that's kind of a good way to transition into talking about kind of our new rod setups for the year.
what do you want to talk about, Kyle?
So, well, you said you're going to go out and fish some of the beaches. Why don't you tell us about the new rod you're going to be slinging around?
Oh yeah, so we had towards the beginning of this podcast, we had our friend Matt from Alaska Rod Co, and he's just talking about up his fly rods, and I was like, damn, I need to get one of these in my hands. So I ordered one up. I bought perfect for the Puget Sound beaches is a 6-weight rod. And then you're going to want like something with like a power taper. Orvis makes like a power taper, or hold on, let me think of them. Cortland Line makes a like a big shot or a big fly. I like something with a lot of power because you're going to make when you're fishing the beaches, 50, 60 feet, feet cast, and you're going to want to be working it, stripping it back to find those sea runs. And don't be discouraged when you get out there. I like to fish, and what I've kind of learned is to fish around the times that it's not all flat and blue out there, right? You don't want to go on the prettiest days. You want a little weather. You want stuff moving. It helps your flies move, and just looks a little more natural. So, you throw your fly into a glass of water that you're shaking around, it's looking a little kind of distorted compared to if you just drop it in a glass of water. It's gonna be all visible, right? So I'm excited. I'm gonna go try out. I cast it the other day, really smooth. I want to give a review on it, but I want to get it with the rod, the line type on the rod, and I want to get out there and actually see how it performs on the water. And then when I get out and try it, I'll come back on here and tell you kind of what I thought and how it went. So I'm really excited to get out there and fish. But make sure that when you're going to hit the beaches, you get a reel and try to get a sealed drag on it, because that saltwater will eat reels up pretty good, and wash all your gear. I always wash all my gear. So, but yeah, I'm excited to get out there and do some of that. And there was some springer fishing happening, but I don't know if I'm going to get out and try any of that.
Gotcha.
What about you, Kyle? What's kind of your setup this year?
So I also have a new rod through our buddy Matt over at Alaska Rod Co. I have a 9-foot 7-weight. Last year I was looking for something a little bit stiffer. I had a 9-foot 6-weight Clearwater, a couple of them that I used for my guide rods back in Washington. But the issue that I found, they were great guide rods and they were great for down there. But a lot of the stuff that we're doing up here, especially where I'm guiding, is we're doing a lot of like roll casting and stuff from the bank, because our banks are so wooded, we really can't have room to back cast and really load up our rods. So we're either water loading from like a roll cast, or you're doing a roll cast, or you're water loading and cast back upstream or over the boat. So you don't have a ton of room to back cast. And so I was having issues getting the distance that I needed because I couldn't load my rod. My rod just was too moderate of an action. It was a little too whippy, if that makes sense. So I needed something a little bit faster action that I could really load up and shoot out there. I had an 8-weight Recon single hand rod, which was great for that. But I felt like the 8-weight was a little too overkill for some of the trout. Granted, we were catching trout over 20 inches in the willow, and so an 8-weight would be just fine. but you hook into a 16 to 20-inch trout on an 8 weight, you're not getting as good of a fight out of it as it would on a 6 or a 7. So opted for the 7 weight. So we got a 9'7". It's got that fighting butt on it. It is faster action. And as Matt said in his episode, it's made for fishing in Alaska. It's made for roll casting bead rigs. It's made for slapping out big dolly llamas. It's made for slapping out indicator rigs. So it is designed for what I want to use it for, which is, again, the roll casting, the tight quarters, the quick loading of the rod. So I'm super excited to test that out, play around with it. In terms of saving money, so this is kind of what I want to get down some nitty gritty details here, Keaton.
Yeah.
I have a 5-weight Recon that was my go-to trout rod back home, right?
Yeah.
I had a Orvis Hydros. I believe it's the number 3, either the 3 or I think it's number 3, which is made for a 5 through a 7-weight. And it was always a little big for my 5-weight, but I like the way it balanced. I have the Hydros 4 for my 8-weight, but I like keeping my 8-weight separate because I use that for the salmon. So I decided I'm going to take my 5-weight line off of my Hydros 3, and I'm going to use that for the 7-weight, and then buy a new 7-weight line to put on that reel. Okay. Do you think that that's going to balance out okay with the 9'7" rod, especially a faster action? Or do you think I should just swap out my 8-weight line on my Hydros 4 with a 7-weight line?
Well, that kind of comes down to personal preference. When we're talking, when I used to work at the store, people would come in and they would always be in between like two reel sizes. And I'm always like, well, let's set your rod up and kind of, put your reel on there and get a feel for it. And then you also want to know what kind of fishing you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. So most of the time people would kind of go with like the bigger option just because it balances well. And usually when you're fishing like when you're, you said you're fishing a 7-weight, right? And you have a 5 to 7 reel or what's the other one? A 7 to 9 reel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like one of those things. It's like they both fall in that category. So you're right on the 7s, or they make the 4 to 6, the 7 to 9, the 9s to 10. Those, that 4, 7, 9 is kind of that one where it's like, well, what kind of rod are you fishing? What's the length of the rod? What line are you putting on it? Do you want, or what kind of fish are you going after? Because that arbor size, right? You want that backing. You're getting a thicker line. So you want more room to put more backing and maybe that thicker line on, or it's just all dependent on what it comes down to. But that's what you're going to have to do, is try each one. And if you're not in Kyle's situation, I recommend before you buy a reel, go down, try to find a dealer near you and go put on, if they'll let you, go put on reels on your rods and just see how it balances. Because if you go, you got a light rod and you go too heavy, in my personal opinion, it just doesn't cast right. It doesn't feel right. My arms going to get sore. Things, your wrists are going to get sore. So just kind of finding that perfect balance for all of it. But that's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah. My kind of thinking is I'm going to try. The first few trips I'm going to take, I'm going to bring both reels, and I might play around with both of them. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt, but I'm going to take all that line off of both reels and play around with it.
Yeah.
My thoughts listening to what you just said is a lot of my casts aren't going to be that over shoulder, like loading that rod behind me and in front of me, right? A lot of it's going to be this pull up, load it, shoot it out. And so I know that's probably going to put a little bit different strain that I'm not used to in my arm.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering if having the smaller size is going to be a little bit better because it's going to be lighter. But again, it all depends on how it balances with the rod. Maybe having a heavier counterbalance on the bottom is going to help with that. But we're going to have to see. We're going to have to play around and figure it out. But I think I'm going to take both and mess around with it. Because again, there's no reason for me to go buy another reel. I think I can make it work with what I got.
Something to look into too, from what it sounds like what you're trying to do. It almost sounds like you're doing like a single hand spay cast, right?
Yeah.
Where you can do like a snap C with a with your single hand rod. But so maybe finding a new line for it that's a little more has a little more front heavy taper on it, like OPST. They make like single hand spay lines that you can get yourself set up. Something to look into.
Something
But
a little bit heavier, load up your rod a little bit better.
yeah, doing your research, and this is kind of like all around. Like Kyle's, he has both of them in hand, so he can go out and I would just fish one for one day and fish the other for one day and see what you kind of like. But doing your research, talking to people, if you go on guide trips, talking to your guides, because maybe like your guides might be Orvis guides, but they might, we all have selections of different rods that we keep in our cabinets that you could, talk to them about, and they'll be able to get you going in the right direction. Even like the Orvis stores or local fly shops or any of those, I would chat before you really buy. I think when you're first getting into it, like getting that starter setup is great, but once you start getting into like technical stuff like this, like, oh, I'm fishing like this size fish with this size rod, and I want this size reel and line, and I'm doing this type of casting, like you can really narrow it down to like that rod could be a specific rod for you.
Yes, 100%. And I working and being Orvis endorsed for Ellensburg Angler back in Washington. I have a lot of Orvis gear, but it doesn't have to be just Orvis gear that we're talking about, right? It could be the Reddington Behemoth. It could be a Sage reel. It could be any kind of reel. It could be an Able, whatever you're fishing with. It doesn't have to be just the Orvis, but that's just what I have. So that's the example that I'm using.
That's what that's the example me and Kyle both use, because that's kind of what we have, at our feet. So,
yeah.
But there's a bunch of, like, I look at reels and rods when they come, they show up, or if I'm at a convention or I'm at a fly shop, I'll pick up rods, kind of get a feel, and a lot of places will let you test cast stuff. So when I can, I try to test cast stuff before, but it's awesome.
For sure. One final thing, and this is going to catch Keaton completely off guard.
Oh man.
So last year, Kyle is in Western Alaska, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is like day 4, halfway through this 9-day trip. I decided to break out my 11.5-foot 7-weight Clearwater switch rod. Right before the trip, I bought a floating tip a floating tip or head for that rod so that I could fish an indicator under it, right? So I can peg a bead. I went to the local fly shop here in Anchorage, and I went to Mossy's, and we pulled up the grain chart. I have it pulled up here. This is on Scientific Anglers. This is the one I looked at most recently. I'm not sure. You could probably find it on other sites, but it's got like every single switch or spay model from like any single brand you can think of. You've got like CF Berkheimer rods, you've got Cabela's rods, you've got Echo rods, Orvis rods, Loomis rods. It breaks down all of the models, the length, weight, and then it suggests what size heads or grain heads you should get. So when I was at Mossy's, we were going over my 11.5-foot 7-weight Clearwater, and we found a head that was in my grain window, but it was a little bit on the heavier side of my grain window. And I know that the Orvis Clearwater that I had was an older model. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it had matched the same specs as a newer model. Granted, the rod that I had was one of Stefan's old guide rods for steelhead on the Klickitat. Mm-hmm. 4 casts into casting this thing, my bobber went down. I went to set the hook, and I snapped the top foot off of this rod. I packed this thing. I flew this freaking rod in.
Oh shit, that
and
sucked.
4 days in, I break the tip off. Yeah. But one of my thoughts was, well, granted, I set the hook on the cast previous, and I hit something behind me, which shouldn't break my rod of the next cast. Maybe I hit a spot, made it weak. My guess is there's two things. One, I've also broke another switch rod right before that trip, my 8-weight Claymore, when I tried to line a pink salmon from the raft. So I had a couple different ideas. One, I set the hook at a weird angle and just putting that much upward pressure on the rod snapped the tip. Maybe I weakened it, setting it in the previous cast. It was a guide rod that Stefan had, and I know how clients treat rods, so maybe there was a weak spot already in the rod from getting beat up. Or I wonder if I got a grain head that was too heavy for my rod.
So there's a lot of factors that play into that. From the people that I've learned to spay fish, I've never indicator fished before, right? But I'm always swinging flies. And you have to get out of the habit of trout setting on a spay rod. Having like it could have been a mix of like an old rod. You kind of overweighted it a little bit and you set the hook and, bam, all of it connected and you got the perfect equation. But I've always, and correct me if I'm wrong, like I said, I'm a novice. I'm very beginner at spay fishing, but they've always told me to not set the hook when you're swinging, just because there's not like the leverage there, right? You just kind of, when you feel that fish take it, you just kind of pick up on it, not like setting the hook. You're just kind of lifting on it and then starting to get tension on it because it's going to come up. But when you're tight line swinging, right, it's got that fly flying across its face and then the fish is going to grab it. So there's already tension there. But there's a bunch of factors that you could say. I just want to add on to that scientific angler. I'm pretty sure you can go back and look at, like, they have them from like way back. Now, don't quote me on that. I know there was like 2019. I know there was like they usually try to come out with one every year, but I think you can go back to like older series, or it might have the older series in there. You have it pulled up, right, Kyle? Does it say like Clearwater, what gen?
It doesn't say what gen. It has, but see, and then here's the thing is they don't make an 11.5-foot 7-weight anymore. Maybe it's the 11.9. I'd have to pull it out and look. But I'm pretty sure they don't make an 11.5-foot switch rod anymore.
It might
be the 11.9 7.
It might be to order. I think they pulled a lot of stuff that they weren't like selling to, if one rod just wasn't selling and performing like they want, they might have dropped it. But I think they have a couple rods now that they don't really like keep in store. It's just for if like someone wants to order it, they can order it. Now, don't quote me on that either. This is just kind of what I've when I was working there and things. So it's been.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was gonna say it looks like they have older ones. Like they have the Orvis Trident on here. I don't even know what that is. The Shooting Star, the Steam Line.
Those are older.
The Helios 1 and 2. So like this must be showing all the older models.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my thing is I'm gonna go try it again. I got that rod fixed.
All right.
Take it out and I'm gonna fish it with an indicator. I'm gonna set the hook again and we're gonna see if I break the rod.
Don't stop. Oh, my brain.
With an indicator. So what else am I supposed to do? Right? So, I have to set in the downstream angle. Maybe I should set
swing and skate.
My head guide last year, he has an Echo 7-weight.
Okay.
Get the shit out of that rod, and he caught fish on it all the time with an indicator.
Okay. I don't know. Like, I'm the wrong guy to come at the indicator because I'm like
You're a purist, right, Keaton?
Yeah. Like, no, I'm not a purist, but that's like the people I've gone out with, because I like to learn from people. They're like, the only way you should fish a spay rod or a switch rod is swinging flies. And I'm like, All right, cool. Or skating flies, Not I haven't heard a lot of people setting up like indicator rods on their spay rods, but if you do it, maybe, hey, if you're listening to this, maybe on one of our posts when we drop this, comment below and let us know, like, hey, you can do this. Just this is how you set it up, or feel free to DM us. Or if you're like a guide that throws spay rods with indicators and you want to talk about how to do it, reach out to us. Maybe we'll get you on the podcast.
For sure. I'm glad I caught you off guard on that one, but I like these podcasts.
I don't know what to I don't even know how to answer that really. This is like a question we need to get like Eric, or maybe when we get some future guests on, you can reach out and talk to them.
Yeah.
But I just want to say me and Kyle have been working hard. I think we're pretty excited for some of the guests that we're going to bring on in these next couple months. So
yeah, we're super stoked. We got some hunting guides. We got at least 2 more rod makers coming up.
Mm-hmm.
2 rod companies, lure companies, people in conservation.
And we're starting to reach out. It's not even like PNW anymore. We're getting people from like,
Arizona,
Texas, maybe Florida later this year. No, the point of the story is we got some great people coming on. We're excited. We want to thank everyone that has come on, and we want to talk about how excited we are to have these future guests on. So I hope you're liking what you're seeing, and I hope you're enjoying our content we're pushing. Now we're going to just we'll come back to that, but you went on a pike fishing trip and you just kind of posted stuff on Instagram, and you didn't really, how did it go? What are you doing with it? What are you doing with the pike? Are you just letting it like sit in your fridge, or are you like, what did you do? What did you make? Does it smell good? Does it smell bad? Does it taste good? Does it taste bad? Let's hear it. Go, Kyle.
All right. So here a few weeks ago, Emily and I went on a backcountry snow machine pike fishing trip with Drill Team 6 fishing excursions based out of Wasilla. Emily and I left Anchorage pretty early in the morning, got to the trailhead. We met Dan there. He and his wife, Sonia, own Drill Team 6 fishing excursions. Met Dan, super awesome guy, walked us through everything on the snow machine. Emily and I had neither one of us been on a snow machine. So he walked us through what it was like, what to expect. We drove around the parking lot a little bit, got a feel for things. And then we went on an 1.5 hour long snow machine ride. It was like a 22-mile ride. Super fun. Got to go across a lot of cool country. Got to go across some big lakes. That was really cool. And we ended up in this little marsh. And Dan knew exactly where to take us. Dan showed us what to do. We had set up a line of tip ups. We had probably a 1/4 mile of tip ups set up.
Okay.
And there was 10. We had 10 total. You could have 5 a piece, because in a lot of these areas where the pike are, they want these things gone. You can't throw any back. So we had all of our lines out there. And just trying to set them up when we got there in the morning, the action was so fast that we couldn't go more than 5 minutes without hooking into a fish. So we'd be setting up one, and then we'd look down and a flag was up at the far end. So we'd hop on the snow machine right over, pull up the fish, and throw it up on the ice. And then by the time we did that, another one would go off further down. So if the first 2 or 3 hours, it was nonstop action. It was awesome. And you're hand lining these pike. The smallest might have been 16 inches, but the biggest of the day, the last one of the day, was 27. So, I mean, they're decent sized fish, and it's so fun to pull those things up. Is you'll pull up on the snow machine, and sometimes that little spool is just reeling off of there, and those fish are going on a huge run, and you pull up and you flip up the tip up and you grab the line, and you can feel the fish on the line, and you set that hook. And if they gone for a long run, you're pulling up 30, 40 feet of line if they just took off under the ice.
Yeah.
Because you're only fishing in 3 feet of water. So you're only 1.5 feet, 2 feet down. So you're not very deep. And
were you guys using baits or
yeah, we were using bait on a big treble hook.
Oh, cool.
And the cool thing is that if you would pull it up and there was no fish there, or maybe you lost the fish, you could take that line and you could literally jig it up and down with your hand, and bouncing it up and down several times doing that. the pike was still around. I was just kind of watching the bait. But if I bounce it up and down, all of a sudden you feel wham, and that you'd feel that fish hit the bait, and then you'd set it with your hand and pull it up through the ice.
That's cool. That's cool.
It was super cool. But yeah, spent the first couple hours just nonstop. Had some lunch. Things started to slow down. We were still hooking fish every once in a while. I was getting kind of late. Weather was rolling in. It's like, all right, Emily, your turn. She was having a good time. She was just chilling out. I said, you get this next fish and we'll call it. And a couple minutes later, flag went up. Emily went over there, pulled it all up. Biggest fish of the day. I'm like, that's it. It was a good day. Let's go ahead and head out. We got 15 fish total that day. One of the interesting things about these pike is where they're at, since they're non-native to the area. The food source that they depend on is not what you would normally think. In these little marshes and stuff that these pike are in, they don't have any other food sources except themselves and scuds, so freshwater shrimp. So when I think of scuds back home, I think of Rocky Ford, right? That's all those trout eat are scuds. Mm-hmm. Up here, where we were catching these pike, all they have to eat are scuds. So literally every single fish that we caught was pooping out scuds or throwing up scuds, or you'd open their mouth and they'd have a gullet just overflowing with these orange brown scuds. And that's all they eat, or baby pike. So when we got the meat is like a yellowish color. It's not like what you would think of a white meated pike or like a walleye. It was kind of a yellowish tinge to it. And it had a different smell. It wasn't a bad smell, but it just smelled a little different. So what the outfitter does is they give you the meat from their previous trip's catch. They take it home, they clean it, flay it, package it, freeze it. So you get that at the beginning of the trip. They do it so they get the Y bones out. But I really wanted to practice taking the Y bones out, because that's one of the biggest things people talk about pike is they're too bony. They don't like to pick bones out of their meat. And that's true. I don't like to pull bones out of my fish. So I took one of the pike home and I wanted to practice it. So I took it home. I got it on the counter. I cleaned it, and watching YouTube videos and kind of talking to Dan about how he cleans it. It's very similar to how you would flay a bass or a walleye or a salmon or something. But when you go to take the meat or like take the Y bones out, you have to kind of think of like there's a strip of meat, almost like you would think of like a back strap on the top of the fillet. And then you have like the meat underneath the ribs. So you would just flay out those ribs like you would on any other kind of fish. But then you have a line kind of on the top third of the fillet that's maybe an inch wide that spans the entire length of Y bones. So basically what I did is I just kind of stuck my fillet knife on the convex side of those Y bones. I just kind of filleted under those Y bones till I hit the skin. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of filleted a whole strip out of the middle. So it's about an inch wide by however long your fillet is. And that just completely got the Y bones out. Once you take the rib bones out, you pretty much have a boneless fillet. It's just in kind of two different little pieces, but that's totally fine.
Did you pick it out? Did you pick the rib bones out with like tweezers or what?
No, I just filleted underneath the rib bones and pulled them all out in one piece.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So that's how you do to get a boneless fillet at a pike. So I was cool. I wanted to learn how to do that. Super happy with how it turned out. But I did want to try a pickled pike recipe. That's kind of a big thing. At work, we have the backcountry hunters and anglers like, I can't remember. It's like a wild game recipe calendar at work. And I've been telling everybody at work, I'm going to go on this pike fishing trip. And my production coordinator was like, why don't you try this pickled pike recipe? And so I looked at it. I'm like, you know what? I should try the pickled pike recipe. And so I took one of those 1 pound bag of fillets and I pickled it. Normally, when you pickle it, you would pickle it with the Y bones in, because during that process, it softens those Y bones to the point where you can actually eat the bones and not, they're so soft, they just kind of disintegrate. But I went ahead and tried it with a boneless piece. I looked up several recipes online, and I believe the one that I ended up doing or using was Hank Shaw's recipe on honestfood.net. Um, and I kind of use that as my ingredient list, but I kind of merged a couple of like processes with some of the YouTube videos that I saw. And Hank Shaw's recipe, he said he suggests that you soak it in a brine overnight and then add your vinegar the next day and it's ready to eat within a couple days. But a lot of the recipes I found online suggested that you let it sit for like over a week. And I timed it out to a point where it would be ready to take to work on our weekly meeting so everybody could try it at once. One of the things that I found is you have to make sure that your meat is completely frozen prior to starting this process because they do have parasites, they have worms. You want to make sure it's frozen for at least 48 hours before you do this process so it kills all that stuff. So I took some of the prepackaged meat that they had frozen, took it out of the package, kind of let it thaw a little bit. And then I took the ingredient list from Hank Shaw, but I used again the processes from other YouTubers that I saw using it. Hank Shaw's recipe called for 2 cups of white wine vinegar, 1 cup of kosher salt, 5 cups of water, 1 pound of pike fillets, a third of a cup of sugar, a teaspoon of mustard seed, 2 teaspoons of allspice, 2 teaspoons of black peppercorns, bay leaves, a lemon, and a red onion.
Mm-hmm.
So I used his method kind of in the beginning, and I dissolved a cup of kosher salt in white wine vinegar or water. I chose to do the white wine vinegar, so it was already starting that process in the vinegar. I cut the fillets up into like 1/2-inch pieces, and I put that into the vinegar and kosher salt solution once that solution had cooled down. Put them in there in a big bowl that was big enough that I could put a plate on top of the fillets so it would force them to be submerged underwater the whole time. And I put that in the fridge and I left it for 5 days. So I let those fillets just soak up the vinegar, soak up the salt. And when I pulled them out, I was actually FaceTiming Keaton. So he watched me pull them out. And what was my reaction, Keaton?
He's like, oh man, this doesn't smell right.
Yeah,
He's like,
exactly.
he's like smelling the fish, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look right.
Yeah,
And
because it was hard. It was just it had been sitting in vinegar and salt for 5 days. It didn't look right. It didn't smell right. But Keaton was like, dude, stick with the process. Just go for it. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it. So I threw all the meat in the colander and I rinsed it off really well. And then I soaked it in water for a half hour, dumped that out, rinsed it again, soaked it another half hour, rinsed it out. That way I'm trying to get all that salt out of there. You don't want to have too much salt because it's gonna be just super firm and super salty. It's not going to taste great. So that was a 5-day process. On the same day that I started my making that solution, I also created a brine um, for the finished product. By doing that, I took the I took another cup. I took some more white wine vinegar. I put in my sugar. I put in some peppercorns. I put in my mustard seed, and I kind of dissolved all that together. And I put that on the stove, and that broke down. Let it cool. I then again stored that in the fridge for a few days. Once my pike was done and that was all rinsed out, I sliced a red onion and I sliced a lemon. And I also had some dried bay leaves. I keep a bunch of jars whenever we use marinara sauce or whatever. I keep the jars because I like to reuse them. I cut the red onion, cut the lemon, and I would layer the vegetables and the fish in 2 jars. So I'd slice the lemon up in small pieces, and I'd slice the red onion, layer them on the bottom, throw a couple bay leaves on, and then I'd put on several pieces of the pike, and then I'd repeat that process: onion, lemon, bay leaves, and then pike, and lemon, onion, bay leaves, and then pike. And I did it until the whole jar was full, and then I went to the other jar, did the same thing, and I had just the right amount to fill 2 jars. I then took my vinegar solution with my sugar and my like my all those other spices.
Yeah.
And I poured those into each of the jars until it was full all the way to the top. So everything was covered in the vinegar solution. I then sealed the lids and I put those back in the fridge for another 5 days. And I didn't touch them. And I knew that at the end of this 10-day process, it was going to be Thursday, which was when we have our weekly meetings. I'm like, all right, I'm going to have this ready to go for everybody at work on that day. So I told everybody, I talked about it for the past 2 weeks. I'm going to bring everybody pickled pike so everybody can try it. I was super excited. I went and I bought this cheese platter, and I bought all these different crackers. And one of my coworkers brought canned jalapenos. Somebody brought capers and horseradish. And I bring this whole spread out. We got the 2 jars of pickled pike and all this. And the consensus was, it was good.
It was good?
It was super good.
Is there anything that it reminded you of, like the texture? Was there how was the flavor in it and stuff?
I mean, it just tasted like something that was pickled. It was the onion. So the allspice and the sugar, I think, are super necessary to add that kind of sweetness to it.
Okay.
But then kind of the citrusy zest you get from the lemon, that was super important too. The onion added a really good flavor. They got a little bit of kick from the mustard seed and the peppercorn. It was just a super good meal. The meat had originally been really tough in the salt solution with the vinegar, but once it sat in the vinegar and the brine or whatever, it was very soft. It wasn't tough. It wasn't flaky, like if you had cooked a fillet. It flaked apart, but I wouldn't say rubbery, but it was similar. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't fishy, really. I just tasted like pickled meat. And I would take one piece. Those half-inch pieces were perfect. You put a cracker, piece of cheese, piece of pike, piece of red onion, and a jalapeno on top. Put that in your mouth.
Did you find it? Did it shrink, or did it change? Or did it stay chunk in the chunks that you cut it up in? Did you notice?
It shrank a little bit, but for the most part, it kind of stayed in those chunks. But
that sounds good. I mean, yeah. I wonder.
Super stoked.
You got to test it with some other fish too.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to try with other fish, but nobody said it wasn't bad. I had people going back for thirds. And I've left it in the fridge for the past week, and everybody's just kind of been eating on it today at the following week's Thursday meeting. We killed it. We finished it all off. Everybody really liked it. It was a big hit. I was super happy with how it turned out, and I think, and I've learned this from the other recipes and the processes, the longer you let it sit, the better it's going to be, because it's going to soak up all those flavors. And I agree. I think it had better flavor the longer it sat in the fridge. Granted, you don't want to let it sit too long, because I'm not curing it. I'm not sealing this like you would seal some other pressure cooked jar. This is simply me closing the lid. So it's not like these things are going to last indefinitely. You might have a month shelf life max in the fridge, but I would 100% do this process over again. It is something that if you want to have it for an event, or you want to give it to somebody at a certain time, you have to think 10 plus days in advance, because you have to go buy all that stuff too. Yeah. It takes a chunk of time, and it does take a little bit of time to boil everything, cut everything, but totally worth it. I would, in my book, it's a 9.5 out of 10. Pickled pike was a huge hit. It is awesome. I love it. I'm going to do it again. Next batch I do the same thing. I learned a couple things that I might do differently, but honestly, from what I told you guys there, that was my whole process, start to finish. Super freaking good. It worked best with a saltier cracker, I had some like your dense, like kind of saltine kind of crackers, gluten free. Those were good, but I liked it best on like some of my little thinner, like nut thin salt, like just a salty nut thin with a piece of cheddar, a piece of fish, and a jalapeno. Man, that shit was good.
That's awesome. That sounds super good. You're gonna have to like you're gonna be like what's that guy who does like the pizza reviews? You're gonna be the pickled pike review, and we're gonna have to slap like a jar, like a pickled jar in the corner, and it's like Kyle's pickled pike review. You can travel restaurants.
That's another T-shirt idea, Keaton. Kyle's pickled pike,
Oh,
dude. You know, that'd be sweet. You could have like a jar, like a clear jar on the shirt, and then there's just like a pike, like a pike, just like in the jar with some onions.
dude, we
Kyle's
could do
pickled
ones
pike.
that we could do one too that's like a jar and it just has like a bunch of like fly tying shit in it, or like a bunch of like you could have like how they have like the jars that they like keep the fish contained in, right? And
Yeah,
they preserve them. You could do like indicators and stuff in it and all that, like a preservation jar.
yeah.
But hey, we've been going at this. Well, this is supposed to be like a 30-minute combo. We're at it an hour and a half. So,
Dang. Oh, I just want to let people know, keep an eye out for not only a pickled pike, Kyle's pickled pike T-shirt.
oh, you're not supposed to tell these people about this stuff, Kyle.
Maybe. This is just kind of a little foreshadowing on another episode. A Mr. Petey T-shirt. I'll leave it at that.
Oh my God, stop! In a coffee t-shirt. They're gonna be like, "What the fuck is wrong with these guys?"
You just listen to our feature episodes. You're gonna know who Mr. Petey is. It's hilarious. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, they won't know who the cockney is because we're taking it out. But
Yeah.
all right. Well, Kyle, I think we've just chatted on and on and on. We kind of give them a little river update. You talked about your bike. We talked about Heather's Choice. Talked about some rod setups.
My bike.
Your pike.
Oh, they said my bike.
Yeah. We talked about Kyle's biking to Heather's Choice. I'm just kidding. No, we talked about your pike and we talked about rod setups, kind of what's happening on the Yakima, what's happening around Anchorage and up in Alaska, up in your neck of the woods, and then you might see some pictures, hopefully, of me with a coastal cutthroat next week. But other than that, I think we've covered a lot of stuff, and are we ready to kind of send it on its way out? I want to add some stuff, but I want to see if you got anything else to add.
That's all I got, Keaton. Why don't you take us out of here?
Yeah, so I want to thank everyone for taking the time and listening to these podcasts. This is me being real at the end of every podcast, and I just want to thank you guys. If you can head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review, that would be huge for us. Let us know how we're doing, if we're doing good, if we're doing bad. We appreciate all of them. You can also give us a review on Spotify, and you can also go check out some of our YouTube videos and tell us how we're doing there. So we're trying to cover a lot of topics. We've had me and Kyle kind of gave you some hints at the end of the podcast here about some possible future guests coming on, and we're really excited to release some of those episodes and record some of those episodes. So stay tuned for that. I think the content we're bringing, it's all over the place, but the people that we're trying to get on is spreading a lot of great information about their forte, or what would you say, their passion. So
Exactly.
check out our partners, Lucky Bug Lures, Alaska Rod Company, our girl at Northern Knits. Check her out. Pretty great. Still knitting some stuff up, still stuff to be sold. Check that out. And then, of course, go check out Heather's Choice. They got a lot of great stuff going, a lot of new meals happening. So, yeah. Ready to go fishing, Kyle. What about you?
I'm ready, man. Seeing that open water today got my juices flowing.
Well, let's not talk about your juices on a podcast, Kyle.
All right, we got to go, Keaton. This is going downhill fast. Not only have we been recording for an hour and a half, Keaton and I have been talking for over 2 hours over Zoom. So
once we get past like that 2 hour mark, or just me and Keaton, things start to go a little crazy around here.
Yeah. So with that being said, this was another episode of the Young Guides podcast. I'm Keaton, and this is wait.
Mr. Petey.
Mr. Petey. No, that being said, this was another episode of the Young Guides podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.